The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
I think the way to think of me is like I'm a technologist, and I try to make technologies that improve the world and make life better.
Your shirt.
Yeah, and that's why I like my T-shirt says tech support, because I'm here to provide the president with technology support. And now that may seem like, well, is that a silly thing? But actually, it's a very important thing, because the president will make these executive orders, which are very sensible and good for the country, but then they don't get implemented. You know, so. If you take, for example, all the funding for the migrant hotels, the president issued an executive order. Hey, we need to stop taking taxpayer money and paying for luxury hotels for illegal immigrants, which makes no sense. Like, so obviously, people do not want their tax dollars going to fund high-end hotels for illegals, and yet they were still doing that even as late as last week. And so, you know, we went in there and we're like, this is in violation of the presidential executive order. It needs to stop. So what we're doing here is one of the biggest functions of the DOGE team is just making sure that the presidential executive orders are actually carried out. And this is, I just want to point out, this is a very important thing, because the president is the elected representative of the people. So he's representing the will of the people. And if the bureaucracy is fighting the will of the people and preventing the president from implementing what the people want, then what we live in is a bureaucracy and not a democracy.
Elon Musk is just making this stuff up as he goes along, right? And it's a little, someone was comparing it to search for WMDs in Iraq, right? He's constantly looking for stuff and then declaring he's found something, and it turns out he didn't find what he's declaring. Well, right. Eventually they're going to start doing stuff that like normal people will realize is just wrong. And it'll take the veneer of expertise off of all this.
We now know overnight Elon Musk's DOGE squad has his fingers in our grandma's Social Security accounts, already got IRS data. We are witnessing a full-scale anti-constitutional coup by an unelected billionaire on the screen, Elon Musk.
A coup, another coup, led by Elon Musk, who's trying to, eliminate waste, fraud. There's a lot of it. Look at what he's exposing. And imagine being the people that are arguing for things to just continue on as they have for decades. Trillions and trillions of dollars unaccounted for. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. You can get to the live video stream of this program at trumpetdaily.com or at the Rumble channel, rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. We've also got the live stream going up on YouTube as of the last couple of weeks. So you can get to the show a lot of different ways. And of course, all of those sites have the programs after the fact, posted after the fact as well, if you want to watch on demand. The email address, td@thetrumpet.com, if you'd like to submit some feedback. So lots to get to on today's show as we focus more on the wasteful spending. I think it was on Jesse Waters' show last night, where he talked about Congress being on vacation this week. Here they're concerned, supposed to be anyway, about all of this waste. That really, I know I've made this point before. It's not just that Elon Musk is discovering what everyone knows has been going on for decades, but look at what he's exposed about the politicians that Americans vote for and send them off to D.C., the swamp. And they spend and they spend and they spend like drunken sailors, and there's no accountability. So many of these bills that the government is happy to pay, it doesn't even have something describing what it's for. And then the fact that there's something like 400 million people on the registry, in the records for Social Security. There's not even that many people in America. These are the kinds of things that he's turning up. And then, of course, you've got the regime media doing everything it can to try to argue for more spending, because the cuts, if you listen to some of the commentary regarding the plane crashes that we've seen in recent weeks, it's all because of the Trump, Elon Musk cuts. They've made cuts, dangerous cuts, and now cutting spending is causing people to die. We've heard these kinds of alarmist arguments before. Listen to this montage the guys put together, number 5.
I have been panicking over all this insanity with these planes.
Yeah.
You know, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. Like, so let's start with the string of mass firings by Elon Musk's DOGE has sparked a lot of chaos, confusion, and fear, because Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is defending the firing of 400 FAA workers.
In terms of the recent string of aviation incidents, Tom, this is going to yet again raise the concern about FAA staffing, air traffic control staffing.
You know, you see planes crashing left and right. You hear about a bird flu, and you hear, on the other hand, about scientists being fired at NIH. You know, at some point, people may connect the dots, and they may come to blame this administration, this government, if they have just bulldozed their way through government, taken out a lot of expertise. Because
there's no thread between all of those except the obvious, which is that planes are crashing, which is frightening. But this is happening against the backdrop of massive cuts across the federal government, including at the FAA. I just want to read what Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Senate, said. I'm thankful that everyone in the flight incident in Toronto that took off from Minneapolis is safe, but we keep seeing these incidents day after day. Meanwhile, Trump's doing massive layoffs at the FAA, including safety specialists, and making our skies less and less safe. Democrats are fighting to protect the flying public.
So as SpaceX moves in to try and take control of the Federal Aviation Administration, for example, and Joe mentioned that at the beginning, and we do see more near misses and threats of air collisions, that's a very tangible effect of chaos at a safety regulator.
You would think they would be arguing that all of this is happening against the backdrop of wokeism and these policies that have been in place. It's not a matter of these agencies being understaffed. It's so many of them are staffed by underqualified people. That's being exposed. And here they are, the guardians of truth. They fancy themselves to be that. And now the Trump administration is in there for 4+ weeks. And he's to blame. I mean, we can connect the dots. He's the reason for the plane crashes. He's the cause. You know that Elon and his team, you know they're over the target, because it's revealing this massive slush fund that benefits primarily Democrats. I mean, the Uniparty for sure. But like Jesse Waters brought out last night, most of these agencies are staffed by Democrats. The swamp, I mean, D.C. votes like 90% Democrat. And it's been going on for years and years and years. And it's now finally being exposed, as it should be. As it should be. Listen to this from Hannity's sit down. I think it was a 2-part series, but he sat down with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And this was from, I think, last night or the night before, clip 7.
I mean, this whole sort of like, you know, they call it like Trump derangement syndrome. And you don't realize how real this is until like you can't reason with people. So like I was at a friend's birthday party in LA, just a birthday dinner, and it was like a nice, quiet dinner, and everyone was behaving normally. And I happened to mention, this is before the election, like a month or two before, I happened to mention the president's name. And it was like they got shot with a dart in the jugular that contained like methamphetamine and rabies. Okay, and they're like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "What is wrong, guys? Like, you can't have like a normal conversation." Yeah. And it's like it's like that they become completely irrational.
He has no idea. But if you're friends with him, you pay a price. You know, it's like I walk in a restaurant in New York and it's like half the room gets daggers and they want to.
No, the eye daggers level is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like I had like some invitation because I got invited to basically a big sort of dem event that was, but it received the invitation like the beginning of last year, and I still attended even after I'd endorsed President Trump. And I didn't realize how profoundly that would affect, how I was received. I mean, I walk into the room and I'm getting just the dirty looks from everyone. Like, if looks could kill, I would have been dead several times over.
But that was not before Trump.
Ashes on the floor.
Before Trump, that never happened, right?
No.
There have been some voices online that have called for his assassination. Both of them. Both of them. Why would they do this if they were just trying to win friends, win people over, gain popularity? They're actually doing some good. It's not as effective with the foreign policy as we've been discussing, but so much of what they're taking care of at home or attempting to, it's been needed for so long. And Elon, as you know, it was the night of the assassination attempt, July 13, when he came out and said, I'm supporting Trump. I'm supporting this man who's risked his life for his country. He talked in this interview about working with Donald Trump and just the kind of man that Trump is. This is clip 8.
I think President Trump is a good man, and he's,
It's nice the way he said that. There's something nice about it.
It really is. Because I mean, the president has been so unfairly attacked in the media. It's really outrageous. And I've at this point spent a lot of time with the president, and not once have I seen him do something that was mean or cruel or wrong. Not once.
I've known him for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anybody take as much as he's taken.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this, and I'm like, how do you deal with it?
Did I have a choice?
Well, you would say that to me. I'm like, what am I going to do? Worry about it? And, and then culminating in 2 assassination attempts, which resulted in your endorsement.
Well, I was going to do it anyway, but that was
it.
Precipitating event, yeah.
It's always interesting to watch Fox and hosts like Hannity to show such vocal support for Donald Trump now. I always think back to the election steal and how they all heard from the higher-ups at Fox, we're moving on from Trump. Trump's finished. His career is over politically. Yeah, they joined the regime, basically. That's what it amounted to. Now they've come around, which is, I guess, better than nothing. But it just exposes again the system, just how corrupt and flawed it is, whether it's media, Social Security, government. 400 million live accounts. Now, Musk hasn't said that there's 400 million checks going out, but there's obviously so much fraud, no oversight whatsoever. They found millions and millions of people on the Social Security accounts that are over 100 years old. There's some that are over 150, as Musk joked about last week in the Oval Office. How could there be anyone criticizing what they're exposing? I mean, we've heard for so many, you do not dare touch Social Security. And yet any sound economist would tell you that it's going to go broke at some point. It's just a matter of when, basically. And yet you've never heard, well, one way to reduce the cost, the tremendous cost of it, is maybe by cleaning up the rolls. How about that? Millions and millions of people, I guess, names, addresses. What's the problem? Are they fake people? Are they dead people? Someone joked when Musk released the chart showing how many were over 100, how many are over 110, how many are over 120. And someone online said these are all the same people that voted for Biden. They're fakes, dead people. And how much is it costing taxpayers? This is from MSNBC, and it's not even commentary on what Musk has discovered. This is according to an audit in-house over the last year or so. Listen to clip 14.
There was an Inspector General audit last year that showed over an 8-year period, the Social Security Administration made almost $72 billion in improper payments, a little less than 1% of payments in that time period. Now, the report also says that most of these improper payments were overpayments, not payments to deceased people or people who didn't qualify to receive these payments. At the same time, Jose, this effort by DOGE is to go through this agency like every other and try to weed out waste and fraud.
Yeah, I mean, and also 72 billion, and that's without a comprehensive search. I mean, that's significant.
It is significant. 72 billion. This is before DOGE. This is before Musk goes in there and examines the books. I mean, the government, you saw it during Joebama years, hiring tens of thousands of new IRS agents so that they could go after more of your money. Meanwhile, you have $72 billion just wasted away. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Where are all the new hirings to get into Social Security and say, look, we're wasting away taxpayer funding, taxpayer dollars? They're making cuts. They're exposing the fraud. They're exposing the waste. Jesse Waters had a pretty lengthy monologue last night just talking about what DOGE is finding and why so many in the swamp. They want Elon Musk to go away. They want to keep operating in the shadows, in darkness. Play this from Jesse Waters, clip 6.
DOGE says they found almost $5 trillion in payments that are untraceable. The budget line is blank, and they're worried about your Bitcoin. 5 trillion, untraceable. No idea where it went and how it was spent. A $5 trillion blank check. Social Security sent out $72 billion in bad checks. Guess who resigned last night? The head of Social Security. Right when DOGE asked Michelle King to have a seat because she was about to get canned, she says, "You can't fire me because I quit." And the press is acting like this isn't suspicious. Congress has the power of the purse and is supposed to have oversight of the federal government. But Congress spent us into a $36 trillion snake pit and never found an ounce of fraud. So guess where Congress is now? They're on vacation. Congress said this was a constitutional crisis and then took a week off. D.C. voted for Kamala 90%. And inside all of these agencies, Democrats overwhelm Republicans. Just at the State Department, 74% Democrat, 18% Republican. DOJ, 63% to 19%. Education, 68 Dems, 26 Republicans. Democrats outnumber Republicans by double digits in every agency. And all of these bureaucracies are unionized and kick over millions in donations to Democrats every cycle. So Democrats win elections and they grow the government, and the government donates more to Democrats and gives them all of your money. The federal government is one big kickback to Democrats.
And really, it's worse. It's the uniparty. That's why so many Republicans are quiet. They may not be coming out with the nonsense that, well, Trump's causing plane crashes, but they've gone silent. And it's not because God has silenced them, like he has the dear leader. It's because they don't have courage. They don't have the courage to speak out. So many of them, if they did, they'd be exposed as hypocrites. They go off to Washington They get their nice $170,000 salary. And then the kickbacks, they kick in. The slush fund, millions and millions of dollars, so many of them becoming millionaires overnight. How is this woman who steps down, she'll now quietly go away because they don't care about her or what she did to Social Security. They're going to go after Trump on the plane crashes. There you go. They should be chasing after this woman. How hard is it? I understand America is a big country, 330 some million people, okay. But with today's technology to keep track of, who's dead and who's alive and who stops receiving Social Security when they die, how difficult is that? I mean, any good insurance company would be able to keep track of that. They'd have to, or else they'd go under. This is just normal. This is just standard activity for a successful company. Yeah, you got to keep track of the books. $5 trillion untraceable, he said. You just heard it. Untraceable. We don't know where it went. We lost trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. It seems like you could almost slash American taxes by 90%. If you just went after the waste. How much it's heartening to think that they've gotten this much done in 4+ weeks. But listen, how do you get to the extent of this sickness, this disease? How do you change the mentality of every man raiding the treasury? They're voted in. And then once they're in, once they become an incumbent, I mean, the millions of kickbacks come in, whether it's to you personally or to your campaign for re-election. This is why it's so difficult to get an incumbent out. What a system. You can see, as we've talked about with respect to sitting down with Vladimir Putin, trying to make nice to Putin. It's the heart of man, and it's not like it's just Putin that's the problem. Yes, he's a murderer. Yes, he's a madman. He's a tyrant. But look at the many vices that you see in Western nations like the United States, Great Britain, Canada. The human heart is what needs to be healed. Jesus said this in Matthew 9. We need a physician. We need for God to intervene and to take away this built-in hostility toward his law, his government. We were just studying Ephesians 2 this morning in class, where Paul talks about these brethren coming into the true church. And he said, in times past, you didn't know the truth. You were aliens. You were illegal aliens, spiritually speaking. But now your mind has been opened to the mystery that's been hidden for ages and ages. And then Paul got our minds on the ages to come. I mean, look at God's creation. Look at the vast, limitless universe. Why are we here? Where is this leading? Well, if you want to know, study Mystery of the Ages. Mystery of the Ages. Let me just think on that title for a moment. God's truth is a mystery to mankind. I mean, just as I was saying in class today, just take one truth of the Bible and hold it alongside what's commonly taught, even in the world of traditional Christianity. God is a family, for example. God is a father. Father-son relationship is talked about all through the New Testament. And then it talks about the family of God, the family in heaven. That's in Ephesians 3. And then you get to Ephesians 5, and Paul says, I'm talking about marriage, husband, wife, here are the roles, and so on. He gets to the end of that chapter, and he says, it's a mystery to this world, but I'm actually talking about the marriage between Christ and the church. God, in other words, is the head of a household. That's Ephesians 2. Look at the end of Ephesians 2. He's the head of a family. Christ is going to marry the church. And yet, who understands this, even in the world of traditional Christianity? Like Mr. Armstrong says in this book you see right there on the screen, traditional Christianity is responsible for teaching the doctrine that basically shuts man out of a Trinity. It's closed to mankind. God sent his Son to this earth so that we could be reconciled to the Father, and that Jesus Christ might then live in us and lead us into God's kingdom, which is the family of God, administering God's government all over this earth. And here we're reminded of it. If you're married and you've built a physical family, God made these institutions. God ordained marriage from the very beginning. He talked about Adam and Eve being one flesh. Jesus picked up on this in the New Testament as well. Two coming together as one, united as one family. And then children come along, blessings from God. Unless the Lord builds the house, God's got to be building the family. That's what he's doing, in the spiritual realm. And you can see why Satan hates the institutions of marriage and family with such a passion, with such a rage, just obsessed with hatred for all things family. It's because God created it, God designed it, and God is a family. Mr. Armstrong used to talk about nations today just being families grown large. We're of the tribe of Manasseh for the most part. I mean, we've invited in the whole world in the last many decades. But most in America come from the tribe of Manasseh. In Britain, it's Ephraim. All of this is laid out in the United States and Britain in prophecy, but just to come back to the family of America, the sickness, the human heart that needs to be healed, that needs a physician. There's a lot of sickness. If you think about just one department, the Social Security Administration's acting commissioner has stepped down from her role at the agency over DOGE requests to access Social Security recipient information. Can't have it. You can't look at the books. Doesn't matter what happened on November 5. It doesn't matter what the President of the United States says or the executive action he takes. So she steps down, and she'll go away quietly and won't be held to account. Going back to this interview Elon Musk and Donald Trump had with Hannity, here's clip 10.
At a high level, I think it's what the president mentioned earlier, which is that in order to save taxpayer money, it comes down to two things: competence and caring. And when the president was shown the outrageous bill for the new Air Force One, and then negotiated it down, if the president had not applied competence and caring, the price would have been 50% higher, literally 50% higher. The president cared, the president was competent, the price was not 50% higher as a result. And so when you add more competence and caring, you get a better deal for the American people.
Now, these aren't perfect men, but he's talking there about the principle of God's law. It's the way of give. If you come in and you, as he said, you care about the American family, you know that the taxpayers are funding this, and you're competent too, you're a businessman, you understand the importance of the bottom line, not that that's everything, but you care enough to get a good deal for the people you're representing. That's the spirit of God's love, pure and simple. And it's rare. It's so rare today. You don't see it anywhere. Hardly anywhere. What you see is, pay top dollar. We're from the government. and we'll give you twice what you're asking for. This is what Trump had to say on getting good deals for the American people. Clip 11.
You offer people a much lower number because, you know, they actually put fat. I'm not even saying it's like a way of business. They put more on because they expect to be negotiated. When you send in a bill to the government, there's nobody to negotiate.
Yes.
You send in a bill for $10,000 and they send you a check back for $10,000. If you would call them and said, we'll give you 5. No, I need more than 5. We'll give you 5. I'm not going to pay any more than 5. Make it 6. No, I'm not going to make it 6. And you'll settle for $5,500. You've just cut the bill almost in half, and it took like 2 minutes. But none of that's
Someone call that the art of the deal?
But that's caring. No, it's not even the art of the deal. It's caring. He uses the word. It's caring.
Yeah.
It's a certain competence, but I think it's more caring.
If you add either ingredient, either competence or caring, you'll get a better outcome. But it stands to reason that if you don't have competence, you don't have caring, you're going to get a terrible deal. And the problem is that the American taxpayers have been getting a terrible deal because look at the last administration. Can any reasonable person say that the last administration was either competent or caring?
No competence, no caring. I mean, you had like the Biden crime family. They were just raking in millions for themselves. That spirit's all over Washington. And if you think about it, if you just step back and think about the fraud that was the last administration, we've focused on the media, how that they were complicit in this lie, this big lie, that everything's okay with Joe Biden. This iteration of Joe Biden, as Scarborough said, it's the best ever. It's the best he's ever been. They lied. But you know who else lied? All these world leaders that interacted with the fake president, that interacted with this man that was just a puppet, that was being put forward by handlers, by the dear leader in particular. They were all in on it. And with what DOGE is exposing, you can see why they would play along. Because in a lot of ways, the United States of America was funding the world. If you're getting free handouts, look at the Social Security rolls. That's the way it was for so many of these programs that just sent hundreds of millions of dollars overseas as well. And then Trump comes along and he says to Germany, or he says to Ukraine, or he says to whoever, that's going to stop. We can't keep funding the world. And now the world, so many of them, they're a little bit upset. They don't get the freebies anymore. You talk about exposing a corrupt system. It's not just the swamp. It's certainly, do you think nations that are receiving money from the United States, do you think they're really concerned about giving the taxpayers here in America, a good deal? This is from Gatestone. In 2022, so right in the middle, this is after the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. That was in 2021. In 2022, the DAB Afghanistan Bank showed off photos of $40 million in stacks of $100 bills, that's U.S., sitting on the tarmac at Kabul International Airport. The Taliban-controlled central bank described this as one of 3 shipments of humanitarian aid amounting to over $100 million. This would be U.S. tax dollars funding the Taliban. Okay, you can't make this up. Funding the Taliban. And then the Taliban bragging about it, taking pictures. It says here, DAB, Afghanistan Central Bank, was headed by Noor Ahmed Agha, a specially designated terrorist who had been named as the financier of bomb making. So he's responsible. He's the one responsible for. You've got the girl over Social Security. Okay, she resigns because she knew she was about to be fired. She doesn't want Elon Musk to look at how it's spent. So then you got this guy. He's a bomb maker. He's receiving $100 million from the United States, U.S. taxpayers. And how do you suppose he's spending it? It's unbelievable. It says here, including the IEDs, which had killed over 1,000 American soldiers, and sending money to a sanctioned figure was illegal. So what the U.S. government was doing in 2022, it was illegal. Supposedly, I mean, evidently, if it's illegal, you shouldn't do it. But no, the government did, because they're above the law. That's the way they've been behaving for so long. That's why they're kicking and screaming. Because, you know, the ones screaming the loudest are the ones who are abusing the system the most. That's a pretty safe way to look at it. It says, while no international organization was willing to admit to the cash smuggling operation, the ultimate responsibility lay with U.S. aid. You know, the agency, the government agency that's just saving the children. We're spreading medicine around. Well, but the money, it's going to help Hamas, it's going to help Taliban, it's going to help Hezbollah. Well, I bet we can trust them because their children need medicine. Is this a system? Is this a system that Christ is going to return to this earth and say, you know what, I think we can just make a few simple repairs and everything should be good? No, he's coming back and he says, look, I have got an entirely new and different world that we're about to set up and establish. And that world has started in embryo. It is here, and it's in God's church. It's in God's family. It's a family plan. And that's why you can look around this campus. You see a beautiful shot behind me. And look at all that's happened in the last 35 years. You could go before that and see the Worldwide Church of God during Mr. Armstrong's ministry. Fabulous blessings. God just opened the windows of heaven, like Malachi 3 says, and he lavished us. Not just with understanding and wisdom, so that we could know the mysteries that have been hidden for ages, but he blessed the work. He blessed the work. Wise stewards, that's what we are. That's what we're supposed to be. God gives us the wealth of riches, spiritually speaking, and he says, now I want you to go and distribute, to give. Caring and competence. There's a lot to be said for that. Read Ephesians 3 and verse 9, where Paul talks about the dispensation. My father gets into this in Prophesy Again. I haven't advertised that in ages. Prophesy Again. If you don't have that booklet, call our operators today and request your free copy. What a vision. What a vision in Ephesians 3 and verse 9. Paul says, look, you not only want to give them the truth, you want to show them or help them to understand and know that they have to develop that mindset, that same mindset, that what I've been given, I want to freely give to others. Competence and caring. Just caring about fellow man, caring about the family of man, caring about God's family. God wants to spread this wealth, spiritually speaking, not just over all the earth, but he wants to spread it out into the universe. Why is there so much territory out there? I mean, you've got some ambitious individuals on earth today, like Elon Musk, that wants to, travel to Mars and do some things in our tiny little solar system. We're just scratching the surface. God's family is going to populate the whole universe. I mean, you're talking about a plan that goes on for ages and ages to come. The cash had to be physically shipped because it was illegal for U.S. banks to provide it to the Taliban. So it's like we smuggled it in. I mean, we left in shame. People died. And then we sent cash in to the tune of $100 million. $100 million to the Taliban. U.S. aid was helping finance an illegal operation to circumvent sanctions on terrorists. So if your government, which gives you the cash to send over to the Taliban, but then has laws in place that say you can't do that, that's illegal, just go around it. Just carry it out in darkness. Send them pallets of cash. And of course, the Taliban, for their part, they're quite happy to receive it. Hey, this is $100 million from Uncle Sam, from the United States of America, funding, in many ways, funding the whole world. Now that that is coming to an end, it's going to upset the balance of power in the world. It's going to cause a realignment, as I've been discussing this week. You're going to see it. Well, we're already seeing it in the Middle East. We're about to see it in Europe. We've got to brace ourselves for what's coming. Yesterday I talked about sitting down and doing a deal with the devil, or with, in this case, Vladimir Putin, as if he's completely trustworthy. Listen to what this one commentator had to say about Vladimir Putin, clip 12.
My run-ins with Vladimir Putin was he murdered my lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, and a bunch of other people, and he's been chasing me around the world ever since with death threats and so on. And so I know Vladimir Putin very well, and he's a very bad guy, a man who shouldn't be trusted. And so when I'm watching this whole thing playing itself out, I'm thinking to myself that we need to be more supportive of Ukraine, who are the victims, and a little bit less chummy with Putin, who is the aggressor in this whole situation. I find that at the end of the day, Putin could end this war in right this minute by just stopping. That's the thing. Ukraine is defending, Putin's attacking, and he could stop. And so that's what we should be pushing for.
And yet, you've got a new administration that desperately wants to end the war. They want a ceasefire. And they're out there implying that, Ukraine's responsible for starting the war, I should say. They're getting that wrong. But they're so desperate to try to bring an end to the warfare. And of course, Maria, this is on Maria's show, I think she perfectly encapsulates the way most Americans think with respect to, Putin and Ukraine and stopping this war, and just the amount of money, here again, hundreds of billions in this case, that's been sent to Ukraine. Play clip 13.
Vladimir Putin has been a dictator for 25 years. He's taken over Georgia. He's carpet bombed Syria. He's done all sorts of terrible things. I think we need to understand who the good guys are and who the bad guys here. Ukraine is the good guys, and Putin is the bad guy.
But, Americans are frustrated with all of the hundreds of billions of dollars having been sent to Ukraine with no end in sight. I mean, what would you advise?
Americans are frustrated. Hundreds of billions to Ukraine, and there's a lot of corruption in Ukraine's government, just like there is in any government. $100 million to Taliban. We don't need to go through all the woke policies that were being generously funded by Joebama. All the woke hirings at the FFA. This is from the Telegraph. Donald Trump is demanding Volodymyr Zelensky hold elections that could oust him from office as the price of peace. So, they're coming down hard on Ukraine. It's really stunning to see this. After so much support from the West, led by the United States, as corrupt as the U.S. government was and is in so many ways, the Trump people come along and imply that Ukraine's the cause of the conflict, and then demanding that Zelensky hold elections. Basically, some could say, trying to force him out. This is causing quite the realignment. Quite the realignment, and it's not going to work out the way that the United States hopes. But you step back and you see again the bigger picture, as I've discussed here today. You work your way through the book of Ephesians. I mean, it's a wonderfully uplifting study. Mr. Armstrong, in fact, suggested that you read through the first chapter, Ephesians 1, from the Moffat translation, just to lift your spirits, just to see God, just to meditate on the heavenly sphere, to get the universe vision, the big picture. That's what we need in this very dark and evil world. Satan, just like Paul also said in Ephesians 2 and verse 2, he is the prince of the power of the air. I mean, he just surcharges the air with his attitudes, with his mood, with his impulses. You know, Mr. Armstrong said in Mystery of the Ages, people don't give enough credit to the devil and his influence like that they should. I mean, he's very active. He and his demon army. They're the reason the world is the way it is. Whether it's the Taliban in Afghanistan or the war in Gaza or all these hostages, all these dead bodies now about to be returned from Hamas. Who knows how much they were tortured over the last year and a half, following October 7. And then the corruption. Right here in the United States, I mean, the greed of so many politicians that have just left $36 trillion in debt to oncoming generations. $5 trillion unaccounted for. $5 trillion. Just poof. Up in smoke. The latest issue of the Trumpet, it's got an article, I think it's the March issue, on how God has silenced Obama. I mean, it is true. God intervened to save America temporarily by the hand of Jeroboam. But there's no long-term fix here. That's what we have to that's what we have to report. That too is based in prophecy. But just in looking at how God, the dramatic action that he's taken to silence Obama and to basically break the Democrat Party, now he's exposing all of this financial fraud, the kickbacks for Democrats. But just following that article in the latest Trumpet over at The Hill, it says Democrats don't just lack a message, they also lack a messenger. While the focus is on the former, the latter is forgotten, as if somehow solving their message problem will automatically create the messenger to deliver it. In fact, the opposite is occurring. Democrats' message problems are killing off their potential messengers. Now, you read through this article and you see not one reference to the dear leader. I mean, think about how sudden, how dramatic this transformation was. Not the Obama transformation, but the transformation from being the messenger for the Democrat Party to being silenced. He's not even mentioned now. It was just a few months ago. Remember, it was Obama leading the fake president off the stage. Now, follow me, Joe, follow me. Come this way. Yeah, raising millions for Joe Biden's campaign, along with George Clooney and all the other celebrities. Now he's been silenced. Democrats' message problems are much discussed for good reason. They killed not one, but two Democratic 2024 presidential campaigns. First, you get the gist of this. The American Thinker has a piece saying the Democrat Party appears determined to spend the next 40 years wandering in the wilderness, just wandering away. They've got no direction. They've got no leader. And their policies, they're arguing for more spending. at a time when Americans are applauding the efforts of DOGE and Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It's going to be really interesting to see what Congress does when they pass some, if we're to judge by history, in a month or so, they're going to pass some supersized, bloated budget package. They're exposing all this fraud. They're stopping payments, even as we speak, in these big government agencies. But how does anything change permanently if Congress comes along, as they typically do, and give these agencies the same amount of money to work with, maybe more, keeping up with inflation, right? We'll see just how serious these budget cuts are by the time all this is said and done. It says here, progressivism has gone down its endless path far enough so that the worldview is post-reality. Further on, Obama, this is the American Thinker, they do mention Obama. Obama has been the power behind the curtain running the DNC since he was president. As a result, progressive fascists occupy all important positions. The party cannot turn back. This means Democrats openly espousing their party's positions will be less and less popular in the polls. The election recently was too big to rig. And now these people have all been exposed as hardcore radical leftists who hate their country, who've been trying to drive the country into the ground. Spending to oblivion. This March 2025 piece, my father's commentary on God silencing Obama. He says Obama wielded power beyond any other figure in recent memory. Many people still don't realize how much of America's self-destruction traces back to him. But now he's a shell of what he was. He's a shell of what he once was. And I could bring all the sound bites, all the clips from my father's message, or messages going back the last few years, where he said this would happen based on Amos 7. He said he would have to be silenced or removed in some form or fashion. It says 8 years ago, Barack Obama used the end of his presidency to spring the Russiagate trap, ensuring that Mr. Trump's first term was consumed in legal fights and allowing Obama to cover up his own illegal attempts to steal the 2016 election. But this time he appears to be toothless. He's been defanged. He's been muted. He's been nullified, politically speaking. We will see just how decisive and permanent this loss of influence is. As I wrote in America Under Attack, from Amos 7:7 on, we see no hint of Barack Obama. It says, when Jeroboam returns, will that be the end of the political Antiochus's real power? God does not say definitely, but I believe Amos 7 strongly indicates it. There are certain to be some big changes. That's my father quoting from his book, America Under Attack. If you don't have a copy of that, again, make sure that you request your free copy today. Also, you can get a subscription to the Trumpet magazine. This little booklet, by the way, one of our newer ones, America Under Attack. Speaking of the big book, it was prophesied. It's prophesied. Grab both those booklets. Become a Trumpet subscriber. Just call the 800 number you see there on the screen, 1-866-930-3024. That's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We thank you for joining us on today's show, and we'll see you again tomorrow.